looks towards London, and half the world seems to be here on this day of days, the day that will write a new page in history, the day that will be remembered by the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of all the waiting millions on this dull spring morning. To the crowds that have been here in front of Buckingham Palace all night, the day's first excitement is the motor car procession of the foreign representatives, which leaves for the Abbey before 9 o'clock. Every moment the thrill of excitement increases. Innumerable field glasses, cameras, and periscopes are focused on the gently swaying mass. At 9:15 comes the carriage procession of Prime Ministers, representatives of India, Burma, and the Colonies. In the first is Mr. Stanley Baldwin, and in turn behind him come Mr. MacKenzie King of Canada, Mr. Lyons of Australia, Mr. Savage of New Zealand, General Herzog of South Africa, Sir Mohammed Khan of India, Dr. Moore of Burma, and Mr. Huggins of Southern Rhodesia. Then, with the clash of the salute and the mounted escort of the Royal Horse Guards, the procession of members of the royal family. In the first carriage, you can just see Their Royal Highnesses Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret Rose with the Princess Royal. In the second, Their Royal Highnesses the Duchess of Gloucester and the Duchess of Kent. The excitement of 2 millions is rising to fever heat. Their Majesties' procession to the Abbey is on its way. And with a flashing of breastplates and the clatter of hooves, the moment has come. The moment that the whole world is waiting and watching for. With a dignified slowness that makes it all seem as if it were some gigantic dream, the great gilded state coach moves forward in the palace forecourt. And here it comes, bringing with it, symbolized in our royal family, all the history and tradition of Britain and the Empire. It's almost unbelievably grand, the sort of superb show that takes your breath away. Round the Victoria Memorial and down the Mall it goes at a walking pace, and alongside it goes the roar of cheering, spreading like a slow fire. Ahead of Their Majesties' procession come the little royal princesses and the royal duchesses. All eyes are on the glistening steel and flashing sword. Just in front of the coach ride the honorary Indian aides to His Majesty, and the coach itself is drawn by a team of 8 Windsor greys. Walking immediately behind the coach is the man who puts the brake on when it stops. Then the Field Marshal commanding the troops, the Royal Standard, and the Duke of Gloucester and the Duke of Kent, riding in their capacity as personal aides to the King. But most brilliant in the glittering array is the coach itself, surely the most beautiful in all the world. It was built nearly 200 years ago, and a poet once called it a free translation into carved and gilded imagery of all the pomp and tradition of British royalty. But the focal center of it all is the 2 figures inside the coach, the loyal son of a great king and his gracious lady, to whom today must be the climax of their lives. through the Admiralty Arch and across Trafalgar Square, where Nelson looks down on seething millions, there comes first again the Dominion premiers, then the royal family, the princesses with the Princess Royal. The royal duchesses, whose husbands are riding behind the state coach. And an extra special loud roar for Queen Mary, driving with her sister-in-law, the Queen of Norway. And the royal procession, the Dominion and colonial escorts, the yeomen of the guard, the Indian escort, and the detachments of infantry. The Royal Navy. And here it's the Royal Navy lining the route as well. Then down Whitehall, past the Cenotaph, and into Parliament Square, where the procession enters the most historic part of the royal route to the Abbey. Past Big Ben, the most famous clock in the world, past Westminster Hall, where the kings of old held their coronation banquets, and past the Houses of Parliament to the Abbey Church of Westminster, the church that was built by King Edward the Confessor over 1,000 years ago, and where for 1,000 years Britain's kings have been crowned. And remember that still today, it's the crown of Edward the Confessor that plays the most important part in the coronation service, that within an hour will rest on the head of King George VI and make him king. Behind the yeoman of the guard comes the King's barge master, Bossy Phelps of boat race fame. There he is. And the King's 12 watermen, who used to have the honour of rowing the royal barge on the Thames in the days when royal barges weren't driven by high-powered engines. In front of the coach ride the Indian aids. Outside the Abbey, the crowds are dazzled by the glitter of gold and jewels as first the little princesses and the Princess Royal arrive. Meanwhile, inside, 8,000 guests have already been assembled for over 2 hours, and at the door, the Earl Marshal of England, the Duke of Norfolk, is waiting to receive their Majesties. Every peer wears his ermine and sable and carries his coronet, which he won't place on his head until the exact moment that King George VI is crowned. The peeresses also carry their coronets, which they'll put on when the platinum and diamond crown touches the head of Her Majesty the Queen. Other members of the royal family arrive, and then just before the royal procession itself, Queen Mary and Queen Maud of Norway. Thus, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth enter Westminster Abbey for their coronation, taking with them the loyalty and prayers of every one of us. On him the crown is safe. Long may it rest there.